There are several different approaches you can take to get the right perspective or distance for writing. And one of those, of course, is to just set the writing aside for a while. And then when you come back to it, you have a little bit more distance because it's not fresh in your mind, so you can look at it more critically. Another approach, and you can use them both if you want, is to read the writing out loud. And what that does is allow you to hear the parts of the writing that don't flow well or that aren't clear. When you're revising, you can take an organized approach so that you don't forget anything that you should look at, and look at elements of organization, content, and writing. Here's a checklist that can help you, but you can also make your own. So let's start out by looking at the organization. First of all, let's think about purpose. So when you read through your writing, does it clearly reflect the purpose that you described? And if this writing is something that you are doing as part of an assigned task for work or for school, then think about, does what you've written clearly address what you were assigned to do and all parts of what you were assigned to do? Next, let's look at the audience. So thinking about your audience, is the way that the writing is presented appropriate for the intended audience? Then let's look at the structure. So first of all, does it have a structure? Is there a beginning, a middle, and an end? If the passage is long enough, so more than one paragraph, then is it divided into paragraphs? And do those paragraphs flow naturally and logically from one to the next? Then consider the length. Is the length of what you've written appropriate for the intended purpose and the intended audience? So now we're going to look at the content, what you've actually said. And we're going to look at the order of the ideas. So is there an order? Is it organized in a logical way? For example, is it organized chronologically, or are the ideas in order of increasing importance, or have you organized it looking at pros and then at cons? And is the way you've organized it effective? Next, we're going to look at focus. So does the writing stay on the topic, or are there parts that need to be reworked or left out? And sometimes it may be that there's something that you think is really interesting, so you'd like to say it, but it doesn't actually fit in with your organization or with the purpose and audience, what you're talking about in this passage, so you need to leave it out. Reorganization. So, are there parts that you think you should rearrange? So, should you move some sentences or paragraphs? Would they be more effective if you organize them a little bit differently? And then finally, we're going to look at support. So, do you have enough explanation, information, detail, and examples to go with the main ideas? And are all of them relevant, or should some of them be taken out? This is difficult for some writers because we tend to know in our own minds what it is that we want to talk about, and so it's obvious to us, but it isn't necessarily to the readers. So you've stated something, but then maybe you need to explain what you mean. Maybe you need to give some statistics or examples or details so that other people can understand it as clearly as you do. And if you have used any external sources in doing this, have you cited them properly? So finally, we're going to look at the writing itself. And this is basically the proofreading stage, and we'll talk about that more another time. But for now, let's think about things like clarity. So, is the writing clear, or are there parts where the wording or clarity could be improved? Then we'll look at tone. Is the tone appropriate to the audience and to the subject? And is the way you've written this going to hold the reader's interest? And finally, correctness. After all, this writing represents you, so it needs to be written correctly. Does the writing use correct sentence structure? Does it use correct grammar, punctuation, spelling, capitalization, and so on?